Good morning. Good morning out there in YouTube land. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Ohio gozaimasu. Guten Morgen. Buenas noches. Hello, everyone. Oh, it's getting so busy for me. Dr. Mom Live here with my Moving Forward series. For 52 days, we're working on building a strong foundation and self-development, professional development to make us strong. So if something comes along and zaps you, you're good to go, right? You can keep moving forward without falling apart. So with that, I'm going to get moving. I am an entrepreneur. I'm a business person, entrepreneur, blogger, doctor of higher education, mom, grandma, friend. I'm on here to help move forward, help me move forward, help you move forward in any way I can. So with that, we're going to just get to it because I have to do 2 today. Tomorrow I'm going to be traveling to Salt Lake to pick up my daughter, and I don't know if I'm going to have time to do this. So I'm going to pre-record today. So I'm sorry. I'm holding, have you ever heard about that where you're balancing things? You're juggling. I'm juggling right now, trying to keep all the balls in the air, working out in the morning, flipping the house, my Moving Forward series and my bodybuilding and all those things. I'm just juggling, and it's pretty intense right now because it's coming close to me finishing the house, which, pray for me, next week is the goal to list it on Monday. So, oh my goodness. But that's okay. I'm holding them all up right now. So anyway, on to it. We have been talking about 52 women of the Bible. We've been Jean Seswarda's study on 52 women of the Bible, and she follows the format. It seems like what I'm picking up is she's staying pretty true to the lineage of Christ. She's starting at Genesis, and we're working us through that. It's been very interesting, right? Very interesting to learn about women of the Bible. I don't know. So we have gone through Eve and Adam's story, Sarah and Abraham's. Hagar was the handmaiden of Sarah. Lot's wife, who turned to a pillar of salt. Rebecca, who met a servant of her true love at the water fountain and said all the right things. I'm hoping one day I'll find my water fountain. Rachel and Leah were the two sisters. Rachel was the beautiful one. Leah was, but she had lots of kids. So she was the older sister. They both were married to the same man who worked for their dad for their dowry. Tamar, daughter-in-law to Judah, who went through 2 husbands and then eventually tricked her father-in-law into getting her pregnant with twins. Potiphar's wife. Potiphar was a ruler at the time where Joseph was working, and Potiphar's wife wanted Joseph really bad. So she ended up lying and saying that Joseph wanted her instead, and Joseph fled, which brings us into the mothers of Moses, which Jochebed was his birth mother, and the Pharaoh's daughter found him in the Nile. Because at this point, the Israelites, I believe I'm right, were still in captivity and hadn't been released yet. Moses comes along and releases them out of captivity. And so then we talk about Miriam, who's Moses' older sister, and how she was just a little bit jealous of Moses and had some problems from that. Rahab, Miriam, Rahab, and Deborah Rahab. She was the prostitute that lived on the outskirts of town and now I see her as a businesswoman myself in those times, and she ended up helping the Israelites so they would get through the city basically, and then her and her family were spared from that. Deborah was an awesome judge and warrior in those times. She actually fought the battle that freed the Israelites from bondage again, another 40 years bondage. Then we talked about Jael, and where the guy, the leader of the army that Deborah took over, escaped. He was the only one that escaped. Everybody else died. And he went to this tent of Jael it was her husband's tent, looking for refuge. So she talked him into having some milk and going to sleep, and then she put a rail through his head. Then yesterday we talked about, then we talked about Delilah and how Samson and Delilah, Samson had the long hair, remember? He couldn't cut it or it loses strength. Delilah ended up betraying him, found out how to cut his hair, what his strength was, which is his hair, cut it, and then he lost all his powers. Know who you're going to trust. Okay, and then Naomi's next. She's 16. Naomi was yesterday. She's the mother-in-law to Ruth. And both Naomi, so Ruth was married, had 2 sons. Her husband ended up dying, and then her 2 sons did. And Ruth was a daughter-in-law to she was married to one of her sons. They ended up leaving and going back to their homeland. And she had 2 daughter-in-laws. One of them, Ruth, followed her. The other one went home because Naomi wanted them to go home and be with their family. But Ruth, who we're studying today, ended up staying with her mother-in-law and is extremely, extremely loyal. So today we're talking about Ruth, and Ruth is number 17, and then tomorrow is Hannah, number 18. So Ruth is who we're talking about today. Her name means friendship. So I got some pretty cool quotes today. Things are never quite as scary when you've got a best friend. And there are friends, there is family, and then there are friends that become family. Many people will walk in and out of your life, but only true friends will leave footprints in your heart. I like that one. Eleanor Roosevelt wrote that one. A sweet friendship refreshes the soul. Proverbs 27:9. Share your smile with the world. It's a symbol of friendship and peace. Those are good ones to start our day. Okay, so who is Ruth? Generous, loyal, and loving. She is strong and serene, able to take unusual risks, dealing activity with consequences. We're in the book of Ruth 2-4 and Matthew 1-5 studying her. You have to wonder too, with Ruth, why she stayed with Naomi, which says a couple things in my opinion. One, Naomi must have been really good to her, and she loved her. The other thing is she felt more at home with Naomi than she did going back to her own family. So that says something, right? And Ruth, Moab, so she was from Moab, said to Naomi, "Let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor." Naomi said to her, "Go ahead, my daughter." She went out and began to glean in the fields behind the harvest. As it turns out, she found herself working in a field belonging to Boaz, who was from the clan of Elimelech. Now remember, yesterday we found out that Naomi actually was from this area. She knew Boaz, and she also knew he was a bachelor, an older bachelor, confirmed bachelor who had never, just was not going to get married. And so Naomi kind of interjected herself in this romantic relationship and the women of the village, and somehow she told Ruth to go to his tent and lay with him, basically. And when Ruth did that, then Boaz, the gentleman that he is, should I say wealthy gentleman that he is, he felt that because she had went to him, that he should take her for a wife, and so he did. Today, let's see, the Boaz, then Boaz announced to the elders and all the people, "Today you are witnesses that I have bought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Kilion, and Mahlon. I have also acquired Ruth the Moabitess, Mahlon's widow, as my wife, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property, so that his name will not disappear from among his family or from the town records. Today you are witnesses." So he made it clear that everybody knew what he was doing. This darn kitty, I'm telling you, she has walked over this twice already. My computer. No. Okay. Nice kitty. Okay. So Boaz took Ruth and she became slow down. So Boaz took Ruth and she became his wife. Then he went to her, and the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. Okay, remember? Which made Naomi really happy and fulfilled again, because she had lost her husband and 2 sons. That would be so difficult. That's Ruth 2, 2-3, 4, 9-10, and 13. Okay, so what was Ruth's life and times like? It was harvest time when Ruth and Naomi arrived in Bethlehem. They could not plant their own grain and harvest it. So unless there was another way to get food, they would starve. Naomi knew the Mosaic laws and urged Ruth to follow the harvesters and glean or gather what they left behind. In this way, Ruth would be able to provide food for both Naomi and herself. Gosh, I was going to say something. I forgot what it was. Oh, the way that they're tied to the lineage of Christ is eventually from Ruth comes King David. I'm going to shut my phone off just in case. I'm watering my lawn because I need to green it up to sell it. Okay. So unless there was another way to get for food, they would starve. Naomi knew, okay. In this way, Ruth would be able to provide food for both Naomi and herself. The laws of Moses directed landowners to have some of the harvest. Oh, okay, sorry. So this is, after Moses left, he directed some laws, and he said, the landowners leave some of the harvest behind for the poor and aliens. As a Moabite with no one to support her, Ruth fit both categories. Harvesters were not to reap to the very edges of the field, nor were they to go over a field a second time to pick up what was missed the first time. This grain was to be left for the poor. This welfare system set up by Moses took care of the needy by encouraging the richer landowners to share their bounty with those less fortunate. Kind of like tithing, nowadays and things. But it wasn't a handout. The poor still had to work for their food, following along beside the harvesters and picking up what they left behind. Depending on the efficiency of the field hands and the number of fellow gleaners reaping the grain, it could be difficult to do much more than survive. When Boaz ordered his reapers to purposely leave behind stalks of grain for Ruth to pick up, he went beyond the letter of the law. Boaz also ordered his reapers not to embarrass Ruth where she to glean in the wrong part of the field. So he liked her. He liked Ruth. So he ordered the reapers not to embarrass Ruth and to let her, she didn't have to follow the rules, in other words. She could go ahead and pick up what she wanted. His admonishment offers a glimpse into the heart and character of this man, who took great care to follow the Mosaic law and who with Ruth became an ancestor of Christ. our life and times. Was it by chance that Ruth found herself working in a field belonging to Boaz, who was from the clan of Ruth's father-in-law, Elimelech? Of course not. Even in what appeared to be a chance situation, God was at work, divinely preparing for Ruth's and Naomi's subsistence. We make a grave mistake if we assume that what happens in our lives is merely a matter of chance or coincidence. God is at work, divinely orchestrating events to bring about his purpose in our lives. Do you believe that? I believe it. I know it. I've seen it. Absolutely seen it. I know it. Especially if you allow him to. Because remember how Sarah didn't wait for God's promise? My hair has things going on. She didn't wait for God's promise, and so she gave her servant to her husband, and then there was major problems. The same thing occurs in our lives today, right? If you hurry up and, in my situation, I'm single, and if I just filled my life with anyone, it wouldn't be the person that God's bringing eventually. And it takes time. I mean, it's been 5.5 years, and he knows what I need and when I need it. And so you have to just be patient, and he will bring you the best of your life, the best for the rest of your life. Okay, so, sorry. I was looking at my sprinkler. Okay, so now Ruth, let's see what else we can find. So I kind of like this story. This is Ruth and Boaz's love story. Ooh. Before Tristan and Isolde, before Romeo and Juliet, and even before Mr. Darcy and Miss Elizabeth and Pride and Prejudice, there was Boaz and Ruth. Their love story, dating from approximately 1000 BC, is still powerfully relevant in the 21st century. Boaz, a leading man in the Hebrew book of Ruth, enters a short love story in chapter 2. This book is the story of a young widow named Ruth, whose heart had been broken by her husband's death, yet healed by faith in the God of Israel. Having touched God's heart, she also touched the heart of one of God's champion followers, Boaz. And that's what you want to find, right? The intersection of their lives becomes not only the framework of the earthly love story, but also the foreshadowing of the greatest love story. God's love for the world through Jesus, himself a descendant of the union of Boaz and Ruth. After we look at their story, we'll look at how it affects your story today. Granted, this story has some odd twists and turns unfamiliar to our 21st century minds, but solid principles are there as well. An ancient love story. Ruth, as I mentioned, was a young widow. After her husband's death, she chose to continue living with her former mother-in-law, Naomi, as widowed, who believed in the God of Israel. Ruth was a Moabitess, a foreigner who did not follow the Hebrew God. Yet she opted to remain Naomi's companion. She started, where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. She swore her allegiance to the lonely older woman, who was heartbroken over the total loss of her family. The two traveled from Moab to Naomi's home in Bethlehem, just as the harvest of barley was starting. These women had no men to provide for them. Boy, I know what that's like, and I've become very self-sufficient. But Ruth was enterprising, and she suggested she glean in the fields behind the barley harvesters. God had commanded that landowners, okay, we're going to skip some of that. Okay, when Boaz came out to see how the harvest fared, he noticed Ruth and asked about her. Learning that she was a hard worker, he pulled her aside and told her to glean alongside his servant girls. Then she, young, foreign, and alone, would be safe from possible molesters among the harvesters. Ooh. And Boaz gave Ruth freedom to drink from his water jars as she worked. This was an extraordinary treatment. Ruth was stunned and asked why the man gave with such kindness. Boaz responded that he had heard of Ruth's devotion to Naomi, how she left her homeland to be a companion to her weary mother-in-law. and how he admired her newfound faith in the God of Israel. Boaz blessed Ruth, saying, "May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." He went on then to feed her from his own table and to make sure his harvesters left behind choice grain. Okay, so this is kind of following what we've already read. So Naomi suggested that Ruth act on the custom of the day, which allowed the young women to call upon their nearest male relative to serve as kinsman redeemer. A kinsman redeemer would buy back Ruth and Naomi's dead husband's land, as well as become Ruth's new husband. As instructed, Ruth went one evening to the threshing floor when Boaz and his men were working. When Boaz lay down that night, Ruth uncovered his feet and lay down near him. In the middle of the night, he awoke, saw her, and asked who she was. "I am your servant Ruth," she said. "Spread the corner of your garment." Okay, so this is where she basically is asking him to marry her, I think. She's pretty forward at that point. After Boaz reacted kindly to Ruth, blessing her and noting that she did not run after the younger men, whether rich or poor, he assured her, "Don't be afraid. All my fellow townsmen know that you are a woman of noble character." He promised to act on her request. One rule stood in the way. Ruth had one nearer male relative who had first rights to buy the land that belonged to her as part of the family of Elimelech, Naomi's husband. Boaz, a fair man, said he would give this man his opportunity to buy the land and marry Ruth. Long story short, the man was interested in the land but not Ruth, so he opted out of both. Boaz and Ruth were married, and they later produced the forebearer of David, who was the forebearer of Jesus. So you know that's in God's plan, because David came along later. Let's look now at what the story tells us today about men. What to hope for, what a good man will act like, and why he's worth waiting for. Wait. Aim small, miss small. Okay. A Boaz respects you. In the third chapter of this love story, Ruth approached Boaz with a request that he became her kinsman redeemer. This was not the bold move of an impatient single woman. This was a request guided by Naomi, who understood the legal obligations of family based on Deuteronomy 25, 5 through 10. Boaz was surprised and pleased by Ruth's request. His godly character and respect show in his reply to her request. "The Lord bless you, my daughter. I will do for you all that you ask." In short, this exchange tells us that if a man won't speak and act respectfully towards you, he's a bozo. I agree with that. And you're going to know. Boaz obeyed the law God gave in Deuteronomy. He didn't grab what wasn't his. He wasn't sneaky. Instead, he openly respected the law and his relatives, and he won the bride. Boaz, as a kinsman redeemer, was not only willing to buy the land that had belonged to Ruth's dead husband, but he was also willing to honor the name of the dead husband when he married Ruth. The cost financially and emotionally did not cause Boaz to hesitate. Ruth 4 reveals that another relative was a close kinsman. I didn't know that either. But this relative was not willing to accept the baggage that came with marrying Ruth. Therefore, Boaz was granted the privilege of being Ruth's kinsman redeemer. Remember, Ruth was a Moabitess, a member of Israel's enemy tribe. Boaz enthusiastically married a woman from the wrong side of the tracks, who had financial and emotional needs. Of course, all women bring needs into a marriage. When it comes to God's best for a woman, it involves so much more than just a great guy. A man worth waiting for is a man who can handle your particular baggage. Ooh, I was thinking that the other day, you guys. I was thinking that. I'm like, oh yeah, whoever Whoever I end up with, oh boy, he's got to have patience. My late husband was super good with me. Like, he's like, just, he told my dad this, just let her do what she's going to do because she's going to do it anyway. I just have a lot of energy, independence, and ideas, and all those things. So, let's see. Boaz was a symbol of Jesus as our ultimate kingsman redeemer who brought us back from the enemy of our souls. Jesus, like a Boaz, can handle the baggage of our lives, and he alone knows the best man to handle all of our wounds without becoming bitter or resentful. A Boaz notices more than just beauty. We see that Boaz noticed Ruth among all the harvesters and those who glean after the harvesters. And he was an older man who was a bachelor for years. We don't know how many people that entailed, but we know she stood out. The Bible tells us she was known for more than her looks. Remember how he said, "All my fellow townsmen know that you are a woman of noble character." When one Boaz, a guy named Ben, first noticed an attractive single girl, they were sitting at the local singles meeting. He saw that she was nodding as they listened to a great speaker. This Boaz said to his roommates who were at the Bible study with him, "I bet that girl is a P31, code for Proverbs 31 woman." And they asked, "How can you tell?" He replied, "I have noticed she nods when the speaker makes some deeper remarks. Her nod showed me she was tracking with him and really hungry for the truth." Later, he discovered that this P31 woman's name was, ironically, Ruth. During their first lengthy phone call, they told each other their life stories. As Ruth was sharing what she does and her passion to teach young people to choose the best by staying pure sexually, Ben realized that he needed to share with Ruth about his mom's ministry. So in the middle of the conversation, Ben blurted out, "You need to meet my mom. You have the same vision and passion." That's cool. Okay, I don't think we need to read through that. So they're talking about the virtuous woman, which I really like. It's Proverbs 31. I should read it. It's really good. Let's see how much time we have. But I wonder if the Word of God is one chapter describing the virtuous woman, Proverbs 31, but I wonder if the preceding 30 chapters of Proverbs do not describe the virtuous man. We would call the man worth waiting for in Proverbs 1 through 30 man. Okay, so let's see. Ooh, my poor house is just a big mess. Let's see if I can find it fast. Proverbs 31. I really like that one. Good. I'm not great with wherever. Ooh, I just saw, but I'm pretty good with finding Proverbs. It's one of my best favorite place at books because I don't know. It has like really good life lessons, how to live your life every day, things like that. Proverbs 31. Okay. Okay, I'm going to skip down. It's 31 is 10. The woman who fears the Lord is where I'm going to. An excellent wife who can find. She is far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. She seeks wool and flax and works with willing hands. She is like the ships of the merchant. She brings her food from afar. She rises while it is yet night and provides food for her household and portions for her maidens. She considers a field and buys it. So she's pretty handy lady, huh? And with the fruit of her hands, she plants a vineyard. She dresses herself with strength and makes her arms strong. Lifting weights. She perceives that her merchandise is profitable. Her lamps does not go out at night. Her lamp does not go out at night. She works into the night. She gets up early. She puts her hands to the distaff, and her hands hold the spindle. She opens her hands to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy. She's not afraid of snow for her household. For all of her household are clothed in scarlet. She makes bed coverings for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Dress is nice. Her husband is known in the gates, and he sits among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them. She delivers sashes to the merchant. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her works praise her in the gates. That was Proverbs 31. That's one of my favorites. One of my favorites. Reminds me of my mom. Okay. Oh, goodness. We're moving fast. I have to apologize because I'm so busy, but I promise when I get done with flipping my house, get on the road, get settled, get my internet set up, I will give you more time. I promise. I'm going to do more research, not be in such a hurry, develop my webpage, get my challenge going, all that fun stuff. Okay, let's see. Today's the 11th. Thank me for your problems. As soon as your mind gets snagged on a difficulty, bring it to me with thanksgiving. The very act of thanking me releases your mind from its negative focus. As you turn your attention to me, the problem fades insignificant and loses its power to trip you up. Together we can deal with the situation, either facing it head on or putting it aside for later consideration. Most of the situations that entangle your mind are not today's concerns. You have borrowed them from tomorrow. In this case, I lift the problems out of today and deposit it in the future. Where it is veiled from your eyes, in this place I give you my peace, which flows freely from my presence. Philippians 4:9 and John 14:27. I was kind of thinking yesterday, like I'm getting my house done, I'm tiling right now, and it's been crazy, and I don't know, something like downstairs, like I thought something water was coming out of somewhere. I'm like, oh, please don't have anything go wrong until I sell the house. Because it's in good shape and I keep it in good shape. But I'm like, the plumbing or anything can go out or get clogged or whatever. I'm like, no. So hopefully God will put those problems off. Okay, my friends. I have got to get a move on, and I'm going to record one more today, and hopefully it plays tomorrow. I don't know how that works. So I'm going to go ahead, because next week I'll be going, my first trip is Colorado to a wedding, and so I will be gone Tuesday through, Tuesday I might be able to do one, but it might be later in the day. But I'm going to have to pre-record Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, because I'll be probably in a place I don't have internet. But so hopefully I can pre-record them. Anyway, okay, so we talked about Ruth. I'm going to go ahead and sign off today. Enjoy your Tuesday, and I'm going to do another one, and hopefully it plays tomorrow. Much love and blessings to you. Thanks for coming on, tuning in. Subscribe, like, and ring the bell.